Welcome to True and Scary,
a podcast about true and scary stories from around the world.
I'm Joseph. This is part 3 of Amelia Earhart here on True and Scary. At 6:14 a.m., another call was received stating that the aircraft was within 200 miles, 320 kilometers, and requesting that the ship use its direction finder to provide a bearing for the aircraft. Earhart began whistling into the microphone to provide a continuous signal for the ship crew to use. At this point, the radio operators on Itasca realized that their RDF system could not tune into the aircraft signal on 3105 kHz. Radioman Leo Ballard later commented he was sitting there sweating blood because I couldn't do a darn thing about it. A similar call asking for a bearing was received at 6:45 a.m. when Earhart estimated they were 100 miles, 160 kilometers away. An Itasca radio log at 7:30 to 7:40 a.m. states the aircraft had only a half hour of fuel remaining. A further radio log states that they thought they were near Itasca, but could not locate it when were flying at 1,000 feet, 300 miles. In her transmission at 7:58 a.m., Earhart said that she could not hear Itasca and asked them to send voice signals so she could try to take a radio bearing. Itasca reported this signal as the loudest possible signal, indicating Earhart and Noonan were the immediate area. The ship could not send voice and the frequency she asked for, so they sent Morse code signals instead. Earhart acknowledged receiving these, but said she was unable to determine their direction.
Welcome to True and Scary,
a podcast about true and scary stories from around the world.
The last voice transmission received on Howland Island from Earhart indicated she and Noonan were flying along a line of position running north to south on 157337 degrees, which Noonan would have calculated and drawn on a chart and passing through Holland. After all contact with Howland Island was lost, attempts to reach the flyers with voice and Morse code transmission were made. Operators across the Pacific in the United States may have heard signals from the Electra, but these were weak and unintelligible. A series of misunderstood errors or mechanical failures are likely to have occurred on the final approach to Howland Island. Noonan had earlier written about problems affecting the accuracy of RDF in navigation. Another cited cause of possible confusion was that Itasca and Earhart planned their communication schedule using time systems set a half hour apart. Earhart was using Greenwich Civil Time, GTC, and Itasca was using a naval time zone destination system.
Welcome to True and Scary,
a podcast about true and scary stories from around the world.
Sources have noted Earhart's apparent lack of understanding of her direction-finding system, which had been fitted to the aircraft just prior to the flight. The system was equipped with a new receiver from Bendix Corporation. Earhart's only training on the system was a brief introduction by Joe Kerr at the Lockheed factory. A card displaying the antenna's band settings was mounted so it was not visible. The Electra expected Itasca to transmit signals the Electra could use as an RDF beacon to find the ship. In theory, the plane could listen for the signal while rotating its loop antenna. A sharp minimum indicates the direction of the RDF beacon. The Electra's RDF equipment had failed due to a blown fuse during an leg flying to Darwin. The fuse was placed near Holland. Earhart could hear the transmission from Itasca on 7,500 kHz, but she was unable to determine a minimum, so she could not determine a direction to the ship. Earhart was also unable to determine minimum during an RDF test at Lake. Right back with the disappearance.
Welcome to True and Scary.
A podcast about true and scary stories from around the world.
I am Joseph. This is True and Scary. Let's continue. Disappearance. The U.S. government investigated the aircraft's disappearance and in its report concluded Earhart's plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. During the 1970s, retired United States Captain Lawrence Stafford began lengthy analysis of the flight. His research included the intricate radio transmission documentation. Stafford concluded the flight and suffered from poor planning and worse execution. Many researchers believe Earhart and Noonan died during or shortly after the crash in 1982. Retired U.S. Rear Admiral Richard R. Black, who was in administrative charge on the Holland Island airstrip and was present in the radio room on Itasca, said the Electra went into the sea about 10 a.m. July 2, 1937, not far from Holland. Earhart's stepson, George Palmer Putnam Jr., was said he believed the plane just ran out of gas. According to Earhart biography author Susan Butler, the aircraft went into the ocean out of sight of Holland Island and rests on the seafloor at a depth of 17,000 feet, 5 kilometers. Tom D. Krautz, senior curator of the National Air and Space Museum, has said the Electra is 18,000 feet down and compared its archaeological significance to that of RMS Titanic. British aviation historian Roy Nesbitt interpreted evidence in contemporary accounts and Putnam's correspondence and concluded Earhart's Electra was not fully fueled at Ley. William L. Colifumus, the navigator on Anne Pellegrino's 1967 flight that followed Earhart and Noonan's original flight path, studied navigational tables for July 2, 1937, and thought Noonan may have miscalculated the signal line approach to Holland. Search efforts began approximately 1 hour after Earhart's last recorded message. Itasca undertook an unsuccessful search north and west of Holland Island, based on initial assumptions about transmissions from the aircraft. The U.S. Navy joined the search and over about 3 days sent available resources to the search area near Holland Island. Official search efforts lasted until July 19th, 1937. At $4 million, the air and sea search by the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard was the costliest and most intensive in U.S. history up to that time. Despite the unprecedented search, no physical evidence of Earhart, Noonan, or the Electra 10E was ever found. On the mornings of July 3rd and July 6, 1937, an Oakland radio amateur was reported to have heard emergency transitions seemingly from Earhart. In the days after their last confirmed transmissions, further transmissions purporting to be from Earhart were reported, many of which were determined to be hoaxes. The captain of USS Colorado later said that there was no doubt many stations calling the Earhart plane on the plane's frequency, some by voice and others by signals. All of these added to the confusion and doubtfulness of the authenticity of the reports.
Welcome to True and Scary,
a podcast about true and scary stories from around the world.
Immediately after the end of the official search, Putnam financed a private research by local authorities of nearby Pacific Islands and waters in late July 1937. Putnam chartered 2 small boats, and while he remained in the United States, directed a search of other islands. Putnam acted to become the trustee of Earhart's estate so he could pay for the searches and related bills. In probate court in Los Angeles, Putnam asked to have the declared death in absentia 7-year waiting period waived so he could manage Earhart's finances. As a result, Earhart was declared legally dead on January 5, 1939. In 2003 and 2006, David Jordan, through his company Nauticos, extensively searched a 1,200 square miles, 3,100 kilometers area north and west of Highland Island. With deep-sea sonar devices, the search cost for $0.5 million, but did not find any wreckage. The search locations were derived from the line of position broadcast by Earhart on July 2, 1937. In 2024, Deep Sea Vision, a Charleston, South Carolina company that operates unmanned underwater vehicles, found via sonar what is said are the remains of an airplane on the ocean floor. The object, which is shaped like Electra, was detected 16,000 feet, 4.9 kilometers underwater, and within 100 miles, 160 kilometers, of Highland Island. More exploration is necessary to confirm whether this is Earhart's missing aircraft. I am Joseph. This has been True and Scary.
Welcome to True and Scary,
A podcast about true and scary stories from around the world.